Commander Grizz of the Valaxian Dominion stood on the bridge of the flagship Subjugator, his gaze fixed on the blue-green planet below. His forearms were folded across his armored chest, the metallic surface of his plating gleaming beneath the soft lights of the command deck. Through the main viewport, the Earth, as the locals called it, spun lazily in the void. The planet's swirling oceans and vast continents gave an appearance of peace, but Grizz knew better. Peace was a fleeting illusion for primitive species. With his upper left hand, he absently stroked the ceremonial scar tissue that adorned his jaw, a mark of his countless successful conquests across the galaxy. The scar was a symbol of power, earned in battles with species far more advanced than the one below. "Another primitive world for collection," he muttered to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Mafala, his voice carrying the weight of countless victories. Lieutenant Mafala, her scales shimmering with a nervous purple hue, tapped rapidly on her control panel. She had seen the procedure play out many times before, but the idea of facing an entirely new species always seemed to carry a certain gravity. "Preliminary scans, Commander," she reported, her voice steady but tinged with caution. "Oxygen, nitrogen, atmosphere. Carbon-based life forms. Technological development is roughly equivalent to progression stage 8. Nothing we haven't seen before." Grizz's gaze never wavered from the planet, but his interest peaked slightly. "And the biometric readings?" he asked. Mafala glanced at her screen, her clawed fingers flicking across the controls. "The dominant species appears to be bipedal mammals. Their brains are larger than what we typically see in creatures of their size, but they are far from extraordinary. They call themselves humans." Grizz snorted, a sound so contemptuous that several junior officers instinctively shrank back from their consoles. "Humans," he scoffed, almost amused. "What a ridiculous name. Do they know we're here?" "Negative, Commander," Mafala answered, her voice crisp with the knowledge she had gathered. "Their detection systems are primitive. We've maintained position behind their moon, engaged cloaking protocols. They have no idea what's about to happen." "Perfect," Grizz rumbled, his mouth stretching into what could only be described as a grimace, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. It was a smile, but it was a kind of smile that promised nothing good. "Prepare the compliance ray. Standard procedure. Let's see how these humans respond to a little mental persuasion." A low murmur of excitement rippled to the bridge crew, the thrill of conquest palpable in the air. The compliance ray was the pride of the Valaxian Dominion, their greatest weapon in the war for galactic dominance. No species had ever withstood its effects. No world had ever required a direct military invasion after exposure to its mind-altering effects. The compliance ray worked by rewiring the neural pathways of sentient beings, subtly bending them to the will of the Valaxian Empire. It was bloodless, efficient, and utterly devastating. Within moments, the dominant species on the planet would be rendered utterly loyal, eager to serve the Dominion. "Compliance ray charging," announced Lieutenant Mafala, her voice steady. "Target lock established on population centers. Full planetary saturation in 3 minutes." Grizz settled into his command chair, anticipation building in his chest. This would be just another easy conquest, another feather in his cap. Perhaps this would be the one that earned him promotion to Fleet Admiral. He was ready to add another world to the Dominion's ever-growing collection. "Excellent," he muttered, reclining in his chair. "Begin the standard welcome transmission. Let's introduce ourselves to our soon-to-be loyal subjects on Earth." Meanwhile, at the Global Space Observation Network, GSON headquarters, analyst Tully Montgomery was preparing to end her shift for the day when something unusual caught her attention. The steady hum of equipment filled the room, a comforting background noise. Just as she was about to log off, a strange energy signature began pulsing across her screen, something that didn't match any of the known patterns in their database. "Tulya, what is it now?" came the familiar voice of her colleague, Ajay Patel, who had already begun donning his jacket in preparation to leave for the day. He was always the last to notice anything unusual. "No, this is different," she said, her tone sharpening as she pointed to her monitor. "I'm picking up an energy signature from behind the moon. It doesn't match anything we've encountered before." AJ, initially annoyed at the disruption to his plans, wandered over, his scientific curiosity piqued. Could be military testing something new, maybe something off the books, he suggested, leaning in for a closer look. Talia shook her head. No, I don't think so. And look at the modulation pattern. It's almost structured like a communication signal. As they both stared at the screen, the image flickered, then cleared. What they saw made their blood run cold. The image of a creature appeared, a being with grayish-blue skin, for muscular arms, and a face that looked like a horrifying cross between a reptile and an insect. It was like a nightmare come to life. The creature spoke, its voice distorted as if several voices were speaking in unison, layered over each other in a chilling harmony. People of Earth, it began, its words flowing with a smooth yet menacing cadence. I am Commander Griztak of the Valaxian Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. Resistance is not only futile, it is unnecessary. Soon, you will understand the glory of serving the Dominion. Talia's breath caught in her throat. Her heart raced as she exchanged a glance with AJ, who was staring back at her, wide-eyed. Is this some kind of joke? AJ whispered hoarsely. A hacker prank? No, Talia said, her hands trembling as she checked her systems. This is no prank. It's coming through on every frequency. TV, radio, internet, all channels. This is real. The alien commander's voice continued, even as it sent a ripple of dread through the room. Even now, our compliance ray bathes your world. Griztak's voice boomed. Your minds will soon align with ours. Your desires will become our desires. Your world will join the 73 other planets that now happily serve under Valaxian guidance. AJ's hands gripped the edge of his desk as the reality of the situation began to sink in. He felt a chill of fear creep up his spine as he glanced at Talia, who could only stare at the screen in horror. The world they knew was about to change forever. Talia and AJ were still in the dimly lit control room of the Global Space Observation Network, GSON, when the initial shock of the alien transmission began to wear off. As the minutes ticked by, both of them sat in stunned silence, the weight of the situation settling over them. Do you feel anything? AJ asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Mind control rays. Shouldn't we be feeling something by now? Talia took a deep breath, her mind racing as she tried to evaluate her own thoughts. She closed her eyes for a moment and did a quick mental check. I feel fine, she said, her voice more composed than she felt. Scared out of my wits, but otherwise normal. Maybe it doesn't work instantly, AJ suggested, his brow furrowing. Maybe it takes time. As if on cue, the transmission resumed on the screen. Commander Griztak's image reappeared, his cold, reptilian eyes staring down at them through the display. In approximately 1 Earth hour, Griztak announced in his deep, unnervingly calm voice, you will begin to experience the joy of compliance. Prepare for your new existence as valued members of the Valaxian Dominion. The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving a heavy silence in the room. Talia blinked, processing the gravity of the situation, and then her hand automatically reached for her phone. We need to call someone, she said, her voice tense. Government, military, someone who can deal with this. AJ grimaced, his gaze glued to the screen. If what they're saying is true, he replied grimly, in an hour it won't matter who we call. We'll be happy alien slaves. Back on the subjugator, Commander Griztak watched with satisfaction as Compliance Ray discharged its energy across the blue planet below. The subjugator remained in its orbit behind the moon, hidden from the unsuspecting eyes of the humans below. Griztak leaned back in his command chair, the faint hum of the ship's systems providing a backdrop to his thoughts. The mission was proceeding exactly as expected. Full planetary saturation achieved, Commander, Lieutenant Mafala reported, her voice devoid of the usual nervous tremor. The subject should begin exhibiting initial compliance behaviors within the next hour. Excellent, Griztak purred, his smile widening into a cruel, toothy grin. Maintain orbit and prepare for Phase 2. I want listening posts established to monitor their communications. We should start hearing confusion first, then acceptance, and finally devotion. Let's enjoy the show. He settled deeper into his chair, folding 2 of his 4 hands behind his head in a gesture of relaxation. Wake me when they start composing songs about my greatness, he said with a smug chuckle. That's always my favorite part. Several officers on the bridge chuckled in agreement. To them, it was all routine. Another day, another world conquered, without a single shot being fired. The compliance ray made conquest effortless, and the Valaxian Dominion's grip on the galaxy tightened ever further. Back on Earth, at GSON headquarters, the hours passed, but no signs of compliance had appeared. Talia, AJ, and a hastily assembled team of military personnel, government officials, and scientists were gathered in the command center, trying to make sense of the situation. The initial panic had given way to curiosity and fear. Despite the aliens' bold claims, no one was feeling the effects of the mind control ray. Yet, the alien broadcast continued to echo across the planet, each word dripping with authority and arrogance. "We're still not feeling any different." General Westbrook, a stern woman with salt and pepper hair cropped close to her scalp, said firmly, crossing her arms, "Not feeling any compulsion or brainwashing of any kind." Talia nodded, still scanning her own thoughts for any signs of external influence. "Whatever they're trying to do," she said, her voice steady, "it doesn't seem to be working." Dr. Elias Vaughn, a neurobiologist who had been rushed in from a nearby university, looked up from his tablet. "Fascinating," he murmured, adjusting his glasses. "According to our readings, there is indeed some form of energy saturating our atmosphere, unlike anything we've encountered before. It's similar to electromagnetic radiation, but with properties that suggest it could interact with neural tissue. So their mind control ray is real," AJ said, his disbelief palpable. "It's just not working." "It appears so," Dr. Vaughn replied, his excitement edging out any hint of fear. "I have a theory about why. The human brain is uniquely complex in certain ways. Our neural architecture, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, is structured differently from other species. This may render their technology incompatible with our biology." General Westbrook frowned, considering the implications of Dr. Vaughn's words. "You're saying we're immune because our brains are weird?" "One way of putting it," Dr. Vaughn replied with a small smile, clearly pleased with his own theory. "Yes, the complexity of the human brain, combined with our unique evolutionary path, might be why their mind control ray is ineffective." Before anyone could respond, an intelligence officer burst into the room, holding a tablet in hand. "You're all going to want to see this," he said, his voice urgent. The screen flickered to life. An image of the Valaxian flagship subjugator appeared, showing an internal view of the ship's bridge. The alien commander, Grizz Tak, was sitting in his command chair, clearly pleased with the progress of the mission. His 4 arms rested comfortably at his sides, and he appeared confident that the conquest of Earth was all but assured. "Put it through," Talia ordered, her voice tight with growing anxiety. The transmission continued with Grizz Tak's chilling voice filling the room once again. "We will continue monitoring the progress of your compliance," he said smugly, "and soon you will come to realize the glory of serving the Valaxian Dominion." But as the transmission continued, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Images began to flash across the screen, memes, social media posts, and viral videos. Humans were sharing the alien message, but not with fear or submission. No, the reaction was far different. The captions accompanying the message read things like, "Best marketing campaign ever," and "Hollywood's viral promotion game is strong." "They think we're entertainment," Grizz Tak growled, his voice filled with venom as the scales flushed a bright shade of angry red. Mafala, still studying the data, glanced up. "There's no evidence of compliance behavior at all. Just confusion, amusement, and in some cases, dismissal as a hoax." Grizz Tak's relaxed posture vanished instantly. "Jokes," he snarled. "That's not the standard response pattern. Show me." The view screen filled with more images from Earth's internet. People were laughing, sharing memes, and mocking the alien transmission. It was a spectacle that Grizz Tak could not comprehend. "It appears so, Commander," Mafala said, her voice filled with a hint of disbelief. "They're mocking us." Grizz Tak slammed a fist down onto the armrest of his chair. "Impossible," he growled. "The compliance ray has never failed." Check the systems again. Technicians scrambled to diagnose the equipment, running through calibrations and power levels. After several tense minutes, the chief technician reported. "All systems are functioning normally, Commander. The compliance ray is operating at full capacity and optimal frequencies." Grizztack's eyes narrowed into slits, fury rising within him. Then why aren't they complying? No one on the bridge had an answer. "Increase power by 20%, Grizztack ordered, his voice low and threatening. Perhaps these humans have unusually thick skulls. Hours passed, and Earth's resistance held strong. At GS1 headquarters, the team had been working tirelessly to analyze the alien data. Talia, AJ, and the others had been joined by top government and military officials, all eager to understand what was happening. The clock was ticking, but the humans on Earth were still unconvinced, still unbowed. And as for Grizztack, his conquest of Earth was slipping further from his grasp. Grizzak was clearly agitated, gesticulating wildly at his subordinates as they worked frantically at their stations. The normally composed atmosphere of the subjugator's bridge had dissolved into chaos. "This is incomprehensible," Grizzak bellowed, his translated voice carrying a note of desperation that hadn't been present in the initial broadcast. "We've increased power to maximum safe levels. The compliance ray has never failed before. Never." He slammed his fist against his armrest in frustration. His four-clawed hands clenched into tight, trembling fists. One of the smaller aliens, a scientist by the looks of it, stepped forward hesitantly. "Perhaps there's something unique about their neurophysiology," he suggested cautiously, his voice trembling under the weight of the commander's fury. Grizzak turned on him with a snarl, his eyes flashing red. "I don't care what's unique about them," he growled, his voice seething with venom. "Find a solution. The Dominion does not accept failure." The transmission from the subjugator cut out abruptly, leaving behind a heavy silence. In the distance, the sound of the bridge crew working in a panic could be heard, their voices tinged with increasing panic. Back on Earth at GS1 headquarters, the mood was much calmer, but a sense of urgency hung thick in the air. Talia leaned against the control console, arms folded, watching the latest reports on the screen. "They seem pretty upset that we're not all becoming mindless drones," she observed dryly, her words cutting through the tension. General Westbrook's expression was grim, but somehow satisfied. "Good. That gives us time," she said, her voice low but resolute. "If their primary strategy has failed, they'll need to regroup and reconsider their options." Talia glanced at the general, then at AJ. "The question is, what do we do in the meantime?" she asked, her brow furrowing in concern. Dr. Vaughn, who had been closely monitoring the data coming in, cleared his throat. "If I may, General," he interjected, his voice calm but eager, "I suggest we try to communicate with them, not as potential conquests, but as equals. If their technology doesn't work on us, perhaps we can negotiate." "Negotiate with a species that just tried to enslave our entire planet?" General Westbrook raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Is that even feasible?" Talia was quick to respond. "What's the alternative? We don't have the technology to fight them. If they decide to switch from mind control to conventional weapons, we could be in serious trouble." The general remained silent for a long moment, her gaze distant as she considered the possibilities. Finally, she nodded in reluctant agreement. "Very well," she said, her voice firm. "Let's try the diplomatic approach for now. But I want defensive options on the table as well. If these Valaxians can't control our minds, I want to know what else they might try." Back on the subjugator, chaos reigned. The bridge, which was normally a model of Valaxian efficiency, had devolved into a scene of frantic activity and heated debates. Officers shouted across the room, scrambling to recheck data, run new diagnostics, and find a way to fix the situation. "The humans are attempting to contact us," Lieutenant Mthala reported, her voice trembling. Her scales had turned a sickly yellow color, a reflection of the mood that had taken hold of the entire crew. Bryak, who had been consulting with the ship's chief scientist, spun around in disbelief. "Contact us? They should be begging for instructions by now, not initiating communication," he exclaimed, his voice filled with incredulity. "Nevertheless, they're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. It seems to be an invitation to talk." "Talk." Grizzak spat the word as if it were poison. his voice dripping with disdain. The Valaxian Dominion does not talk with its subjects. They are not behaving as subjects. His fury was palpable, the air thick with the weight of his rage. Commander Mafala, careful not to provoke her superior further, ventured a cautious observation. The compliance ray continues to show no effect, even at maximum power. The humans are resisting in ways we've never encountered before. Grizak's posture became even more tense. His four hands clenched and unclenched repeatedly as he paced the bridge, his thoughts racing. This was unprecedented in his long career of conquest. The compliance ray had subdued species far more advanced than these humans. Worlds with technology that could have posed a genuine threat to the Dominion had fallen without resistance. Yet here was this backwater planet of primitives, somehow immune to the Dominion's greatest weapon. How could this be? Commander, the chief scientist ventured cautiously, I've been analyzing the neural patterns of the humans we've been able to scan. There's something unusual about them. Grizak turned to the scientist, his eyes narrowing. What do you mean, unusual? He demanded, his voice filled with barely contained fury. The scientist shifted uneasily before explaining. Your brains show an extraordinary level of what we would call neural chaos. Unlike most species whose thought patterns follow relatively predictable pathways, human cognition seems almost deliberately random. It's as though their minds are constantly shifting, constantly adapting in unpredictable ways. They resist conformity to an extent we've never seen before. Neural chaos? Grizak echoed, his voice low and filled with disbelief. What does that mean? It means their cognition is more complex and erratic than any species we've encountered. The scientist continued. Try to offer an explanation that might make sense of the baffling situation. Their brains seem to prioritize unpredictability over stability. This may be why our technology is having no effect on them. The compliance ray relies on neural conformity, but these humans are, by their nature, resistant to it. On Earth, Talia processed new information, trying to piece together a plan. We have to act fast, she muttered, tapping her fingers against the table. If we can find a way to communicate with them directly, maybe we can buy enough time to figure out what they're really after. General Westbrook stood up, her expression hardening. You're right, but we need to be careful. These aliens are not going to just let us go unscathed. We need a strategy that keeps them talking while we figure out what else they might try. Back on the subjugator, Grizak seethed. The commander's mind raced, his thoughts a whirlpool of rage and confusion. He had underestimated these humans. Their minds were more resilient than any species he had ever encountered, their neural patterns too erratic to predict, let alone control. This was a new kind of war, one where technology alone was not enough. As his officers scrambled to find a solution, Grizak realized something even more dangerous. For the first time in his career, he might be facing a species that was beyond the reach of the Valaxian Dominion, and that realization filled him with an unfamiliar feeling. Fear. Grizak glared at the scientist, his mind struggling to process the new information. The creature's words reverberated in his mind, utterly nonsensical in their implications. They make connections between unrelated concepts, engage in abstract reasoning that defies logical progression, and exhibit emotional responses that contradict their logical understanding of situations. And this makes them immune to the compliance ray. Precisely, the scientist confirmed, his voice steady despite the weight of the revelation. The ray works by imposing pattern and order on neural pathways. It creates harmony where there was discord. But the human brain thrives on discord. It's as if their entire cognitive evolution has been built around resisting the very thing our technology tries to impose. Grizak's eyes locked onto the viewscreen, staring at the blue planet that had so unexpectedly defied him. His thoughts spiraled. So what you're saying is... He trailed off, struggling to wrap his mind around the idea. Their minds are too chaotic to control, the scientist confirmed once again, his voice tinged with awe and caution. At least, not with our current technology. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Grizak's thoughts raced, but he was still trying to make sense of the magnitude of what had been said. Should we respond to their communication attempt? Commander Mafala's voice cut through the quiet, her question hanging in the air, but Grizak was still lost in thought. He knew the logical course of action was to retreat. return to Valaxian space, regroup, and develop new technology designed specifically to subdue these humans. But retreat meant failure, and failure was not acceptable to the Dominion. It was not acceptable to Grizak personally. He slammed his fist against the armrest, his claws digging into material. "No!" He spat through clenched teeth. "If we cannot control them, we will destroy them. Repair the kinetic bombardment system. Target their largest population centers." "Commander, that would be a direct violation of Dominion conquest protocols." Mafala protested, her voice rising with alarm. "We are mandated to preserve infrastructure and population for future integration." Grizak's rage flared. "I know the protocols," he roared. "But these humans have left us no choice. If they cannot serve the Dominion, they cannot be allowed to exist as a potential threat." The decision was made, final and unyielding. As the crew reluctantly moved to comply with the order, none of them noticed a blinking light on one of the communication consoles, a small, unnoticed indicator that their internal transmissions were being intercepted. The humans they were now planning to destroy were listening, and they were learning. Back at the GSON command center, the situation on Earth was deteriorating rapidly. Talia burst into the room, her face pale and her grip on her tablet so tight that her knuckles had turned white. "We got a problem," she announced, her voice tense with urgency. General Westbrook stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "How reliable is this intelligence?" Talia wasted no time. "Straight from their communications, General." She connected her tablet to the main display, the data appearing almost instantaneously. "Our translation algorithms have improved dramatically in the last few hours. We're now catching about 80% of their internal chatter." The screen displayed a transcript of Grizak's order to prepare for kinetic bombardment. Dr. Vaughn whistled low under his breath. "Maya, so much for the diplomatic approach." AJ muttered, rubbing his temples. "This just keeps getting worse." General Westbrook's face hardened as she turned to the room. "Options, people. I need them now." Colonel Martinez, the senior military strategist, was the first to speak. "Conventional military response isn't viable. Even if we launched every missile we have, their technology appears advanced enough to neutralize our attacks before they reach the target." Talia's mind was already working at full speed. "What about the fact that we can monitor their communications?" she suggested, her eyes gleaming with something close to hope. "That gives us an advantage they don't know we have." "Not just monitor," she continued, typing rapidly on her tablet. "Based on what we've learned about their systems, I think we might be able to do more than just listen in." General Westbrook's brow furrowed. "Explain." Talia didn't miss a beat. "Their communication technology operates on principles similar to ours, just more advanced. But they clearly never develop encryption to the level we have, probably because they never needed to. When every species you encounter eventually become compliant, why bother securing your transmissions?" "So, you say we can hack them?" AJ asked, incredulous, his voice rising in disbelief. "Not exactly hack," Talia replied, a sly smile curling her lips. "But interfere, disrupt, maybe even feed them false information." Dr. Vaughn caught on immediately, his eyes lighting up. "Brilliant." General Westbrook's face darkened. "Send what back?" Talia and Dr. Vaughn exchanged a glance, their minds already racing. "That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" Dr. Vaughn said, his voice low, "What do you transmit to an alien race that just tried to enslave your species and is now planning to bomb you?" Before anyone could respond, an unexpected voice spoke up from the back of the room. "Memes. Memes." All heads turned to see Joey Finch, a young tech assistant who had been quietly monitoring social media responses to the alien broadcast. "What did you say, son?" General Westbrook asked, her tone suggesting she might have misheard him. Joey swallowed hard but stood his ground. "I mean, internet culture," he said. "The most chaotic, nonsensical bits of human communication we've got." He turned his monitor around to show the room, his fingers tapping the screen to reveal the flood of image macros, videos, and text posts that exploded across social media. The screen displayed meme after meme, Commander Grizak's face photoshopped into classic meme formats, his stern expression juxtaposed with ridiculous captions and absurd scenarios. General Westbrook stared at the screen in silence for a long moment, then turned back to Talia. "Are you suggesting we send them memes?" Talia's eyes gleamed with a strange sort of excitement. "I'm suggesting we send them everything that defines us, everything they can't control. It's the perfect message. If their minds are built to resist order and structure, let's give them the one thing that's chaos incarnate." Dr. Vaughn nodded thoughtfully. "It might be the only way to crack through. We give them the power of our collective absurdity. With captions like, 'Tries to mind control entire planet, gets trolled instead.' And that moment when your super weapon is just super disappointing." Joey grinned widely as the room fell silent. "The aliens said our brains are too chaotic for them to control, right?" Joey continued, his voice steady with a mix of excitement and disbelief. "Well, this is human chaos distilled to its purest form. Years of inside jokes, contextless references, absurdist humor. It's perfect." A slow smile spread across Dr. Vaughn's face. "The boy might be onto something," he said, his voice almost contemplative. "If their minds work on principles of order and pattern, exposing them to the deliberate disorder of human internet culture could be disorienting, to say the least." General Westbrook raised an eyebrow. "You want our defense against an alien invasion to be cat videos and rickrolls?" Talia didn't miss a beat. "Not just that," she jumped in, her fingers dancing across her keyboard. "We combine it with a targeted disruption of their systems. The memes and cultural content will go through compliance-raised carrier wave, flooding their systems with information they're not equipped to process. Meanwhile, we'll launch a more conventional cyber attack on their weapons and air navigation systems." Colonel Martinez slowly nodded, his expression a mix of surprise and approval. A digital version of shock and awe hit them with everything at once. Create confusion, chaos. It's completely insane. General Westbrook paused, considering the implications. Then she smiled grimly. "Exactly why it might work. Make it happen." On the bridge of the subjugator, things were taking a dark turn. Lieutenant Mafala approached Commander Grizak with visible hesitation, her scales flickering between yellow and green. "Kinetic bombardment systems are at 60% readiness. Commander, we should be able to launch within 20 minutes. Grizak nodded absently, his focus on the view screen displaying the planet below. Such a waste of resources, having to destroy rather than assimilate. The Dominion Council would not be pleased, but he would justify his actions. These humans were clearly too dangerous to be left alive. A species immune to the compliance ray could create problems throughout the Empire if their resistance spread. "Sir," the communications officer called out urgently, "I'm detecting unusual activity in our information networks." Grizak's head snapped toward the officer. "Explain." The officer hesitated, tapping the controls. "There's a surge of data coming through multiple channels. Commander, it doesn't match any known communication protocol." Grizak marched over to the officer's station. "Show me." The terminal screen filled with a barrage of images and text. Human faces contorted into exaggerated expressions. Animals in improbable situations. Text overlaid on images that seemed to reference cultural concepts without context. Among them, strangely distorted images of Grizak himself, accompanied by phrases like mind control, "When you try to enslave Earth, but humans are just built different." Grizak stared at the screen, his frustration building. "What is this nonsense?" he growled. The chief scientist hurried over, looking deeply troubled. "It appears to be some form of human communication, Commander, but the patterns are disturbing. There's no logical progression, no coherent meaning structure. It's as if they're deliberately violating every principle of ordered thought." As the crew watched, the images and text began to appear faster. A dizzying assault of disconnected concepts, references, and symbols. Several crew members recoiled from their stations, visibly disturbed by the chaotic visuals. "Make it stop." Grizak barked. "I'm trying, Commander," the communications officer replied, his voice strained. "It's coming through multiple channels simultaneously. Even Compliance Ray's carrier wave is being used to transmit this, whatever it is. Shut down the Compliance Ray. Grizak roared. We can't, the officer reported, panic rising in his voice. System not responding. The human data stream is interfering with control protocols. Suddenly, every screen on the bridge shifted to display the same image. A strange creature with brown and white fur, identified by the translation software as a Shiba Inu dog. Overlaid text read, "Such invasion, very fail, wow." Grizak's mind reeled. His concentration fractured as the chaotic imagery flooded his senses. A headache throbbed behind his eyes. Around him, his officers began to show visible signs of distress. Scales shifting colors rapidly, hands trembling as they struggled to regain control of their systems. Status of the kinetic bombardment system? Grizak demanded, his voice growing more strained. Delayed. Offline, Commander, Lieutenant Mafala reported, her voice tinged with stress. Grizak slammed his fist into the control panel, the sound reverberating through the bridge. This was not how it was supposed to go. All weapon systems are locked out. Navigation's compromised as well. We're being hacked by the humans, reported an engineer, his voice tight with strain. Impossible. Grizz roared, slamming all four fists down onto the nearest console, cracking its surface. They're primitives. They couldn't possibly understand our technology. The chief scientist, standing nearby, spoke up carefully. Respectfully, Commander, I don't think they needed to understand our technology. They found our greatest weakness and exploited it. Grizz's eyes narrowed. And what weakness is that? Order, the scientist replied simply. Our minds, our society, our technology, all built on principles of perfect order and pattern. These humans, they thrive on chaos. They embrace it, and they weaponize it against us. An alarm blared through the ship. Multiple systems failing. An engineer reported from across the bridge. Life support is stable, but propulsion, weapons, shields, all compromised. Can we at least communicate with the humans? Grizz asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Yes, Commander. That channel remains open. The communications officer confirmed. Then hail them. In the G-Song Command Center, the mood had shifted from grim determination to cautious optimism as they watched the alien ship systems falter under their digital assault. Their weapons are offline, Talia confirmed, monitoring the data stream. Navigation compromised. They're essentially dead in space. They're hailing us, AJ announced. General Westbrook straightened her uniform. Tekka Razison put them through. Keep the digital assault running in the background. The main screen flickered, then resolved to show Commander Grizak. Once imposing, the alien now looked distinctly rattled. His scales cycled through a pattern of stress colors, and his four hands gripped the command chair for support. Humans, he began, his voice unsteady. You have demonstrated unexpected capabilities. That's putting it mildly, General Westbrook replied coolly. You tried to enslave our planet, then planned to destroy us when that failed. Give me one good reason why we shouldn't push this advantage and destroy your ship permanently. Grizak's eyes narrowed. Because of Alaxian Dominion controls 73 other worlds. Destroy me, and they will send more ships, more commanders. Your victory will be temporary, perhaps. Dr. Vaughn stepped forward. But now we know your weakness. We can share that knowledge with other species. Your compliance ray doesn't work on humans. What if other species learn to resist it too? For the first time, genuine fear flickered in Grizak's expression. What do you want? General Westbrook smiled thinly. Now we're getting somewhere. First, you will withdraw your ship from our solar system immediately. Second, Earth and humanity are to be classified as protected and independent. No further conquest attempts. The Dominion does not recognize independent worlds, Grizak protested, though his voice held less conviction than before. It does now, General Westbrook countered. Unless you prefer we continue our demonstration of human chaos, I understand we barely scratched the surface of what our internet has to offer. We haven't even shown you our cat videos yet. Several officers around Grizak visibly flinched. Shudders ran through the room. Third, Dr. Vaughn added. We want information, star charts, species data, knowledge of the other worlds under your control. Grizak's expression darkened. You want us to betray the Dominion's secrets? Consider it a cultural exchange, Talia suggested. You've learned about humans today. Now we want to learn about the galaxy. Grizak fell silent, clearly weighing his options. After a long pause, he spoke. I will agree to your terms, with one condition of my own. Knowledge of what transpired here must not reach the Dominion Council. Officially, we were just scouting this sector and determined Earth was unsuitable for integration. You want us to help you save face? General Westbrook observed. I want to prevent a full-scale war that would benefit neither of our species. Grizak corrected. If the Council learns not only that the compliance ray failed, but that humans temporarily disabled the Dominion flagship, you would be seen as an existential threat. The consequences would be far worse than what I planned. The humans exchanged glances. We accept your condition, General Westbrook said. But know this, if the Dominion breaks faith with humanity, we won't hesitate to share what we've learned with every species we can contact. Grizak inclined his head. Understood. Now, please remove your chaotic data from our systems, so we can restore functionality and depart. We'll dial it back, Talia agreed, but we're keeping a connection open until you're well out of our solar system, just as a precaution. Fair enough, Grizak conceded, though his curiosity was evident. I admit I am curious. Your species' cognitive patterns are unlike anything we've encountered in centuries of exploration. How do you function with such mental chaos? Dr. Vaughn smiled. We don't just function with it, Commander. We thrive on it. Human creativity, innovation, art, humor, all emerge from our ability to make unexpected connections and embrace contradiction and absurdity alongside logic and reason. Fascinating, Grizak murmured, genuinely intrigued despite himself. Perhaps there is much the Dominion could learn from humanity in more peaceful circumstances. Perhaps, General Westbrook agreed, but that's a conversation for another day. For now, I suggest you focus on leaving our system promptly. Grizak nodded. As agreed, transmit coordinates for the data exchange. We will uphold our end of the bargain before departure. The communication ended, and for a moment, the command center was silent. Did we just win? Joey asked from the back of the room. I think we did, AJ replied, his voice filled with surprise. Talia let out a slightly hysterical laugh. We defeated an advanced alien invasion force with memes. It has to be a first in galactic history. Don't get too comfortable, General Westbrook cautioned. This is just the beginning. We bought ourselves time and a measure of security. But now we know what's out there. 73 worlds under alien control. Who knows how many other spacefaring species there are? The universe just got a whole lot bigger and more complicated. Dr. Vaughn added, think of what we can learn from this data exchange. Think of what they'll learn about us. Talia countered. For better or worse, humanity just announced its presence on the galactic stage. General Westbrook nodded solemnly. Indeed, and our first impression was chaos. 6 months later, Commander Grizak stood before the Dominion High Council, completing his mission report. Thus, I determined that the planet Earth and its species, humans, would be unsuitable for integration into the Dominion at this time. Their social structures are too fragmented, their resources too depleted by their own activities to justify the expenditure. The High Counselor, an ancient Valaxian with pale blue scales that had faded with age, fixed Grizak with a penetrating stare. You spent considerable time in orbit around this supposedly worthless world, the High Counselor said. Why? Grizak had prepared for this. Scientific curiosity, High Counselor, the human mind exhibits unusual patterns that warranted study. I included the preliminary findings in my report. Yes, these chaotic cognitive structures you mentioned, most irregular indeed. The High Counselor's tone was skeptical. My chief scientist believes further study could yield insights, but from a safe distance. I recommend classifying Earth as a research observation world rather than a conquest target. The High Counselor's eyes narrowed. There's something you're not telling us, Commander. Your record has been impeccable until now. 73 worlds brought into Dominion without a single complication. Then suddenly you recommend bypassing a habitable planet. Most curious. Grizak held his composure with effort. I assure you, High Counselor, my assessment is based purely on Dominion interests. The humans would make troublesome subjects at best, dangerous ones at worst. After a tense moment, the High Counselor nodded. Very well. Earth will be classified, as you recommend. You are dismissed, Commander. Grizak bowed and turned to leave, relief flooding through him. One more thing, Commander, the High Counselor called after him. Grizak froze. Yes, High Counselor. There's a term in your personal log that our analysts couldn't translate. Something called Rickroll. What does this mean? Grizak suppressed a shudder as unwanted memories of human internet chaos flooded his mind. Nothing of importance, High Counselor. A minor cultural curiosity. Nothing more. As he strode from the council chambers, Grizak made a mental note to purge his personal logs more thoroughly in the future. The humans had kept their word about maintaining secrecy, and he would uphold his end of the bargain. The galaxy wasn't ready for human chaos yet, but someday, he suspected, the Dominion would encounter it again. When that day came, Grizak wasn't entirely sure which side he would prefer to be on. Back on Earth, in a new, much larger GSON facility, Talia Montgomery scrolled through alien star charts on a holographic display. Found another one, she called to AJ, who was working nearby. Planet Chirelia. 7th world conquered by the Valaxian Dominion. Primarily aquatic species with some telepathic abilities. Added to the contact list. AJ replied, not looking up from his work. Dr. Vaughn thinks they might be receptive to our liberation package. Talia nodded, tagging the planet on the system's map. In the months since the Valaxian encounter, Earth had been quietly preparing. The alien data had accelerated human technology by decades, if not centuries. While they had kept their word to Grizak about not revealing what had happened, they had started reaching out to other subjugated worlds, sharing a carefully crafted message. Resistance was possible, and the compliance raid could be overcome. How's the cultural database coming along? Talia asked. AJ grinned. Joey's team has up to over 10 petabytes of pure human chaos. Themes, music, art, literature, philosophy, cat videos, everything that makes us uniquely human. Perfect. Talia leaned back in her chair, gazing up at the star map now dotted with potential allies. You know, when I took this job monitoring space for unusual signals, I never imagined I'd end up planning a galactic revolution. Based on what, though? AJ asked. The right to be weird, Talia corrected. The right to be human. The right for every species to think their own thoughts, make their own choices, and embrace their own version of chaos. Outside the facility's windows, the sun set on a world forever changed. A world now aware of its place in a larger universe, and of its unique power. The power of minds too chaotic to be controlled.